Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I've got Spencer Dinwiddie's signature shoe, the 361 DVD one, and for his particular game style, especially the way kind of he plays guard in the NBA, I do think these are a very good match. The engineering of these and the design of them was pretty spot on to his game, so let's see if they are a buy for you as well. Here we go. And getting into the uppers of the DVD one, honestly, they remind me of an old school like Etnies skate shoe, or almost kind of like the Nike PG6, except that the materials in them are a little different. It is a super tightly woven mesh. Now, it is mostly textile materials in the uppers, and like I said, it is very tightly woven. It is very maximalist in the uppers. They are outrigger lace eyelets on the lateral side. Now, that pulls the medial side of the shoe up more, gives you more feeling a glove-like fit around your arch. Now, what I do like about this is the tongue is super padded and thick right around kind of your ankle joint. So you're not going to get any of that weird numbness feeling when you tie your shoelaces real tight around your ankle, but then it goes into a very thin mesh down into the footbed. But the interesting thing about the uppers is you look at the breathability test, these heated up 134.4 degrees, cooled down another 66.2 degrees. Now, I thought these were going to heat up a lot more than they did. However, when I had the heat gun in there and I had my hand around it trying to figure out where the heat was radiating from, the tongue is just breathing so crazily. The heat was escaping there. It almost felt like the heat gun was right on my hand. That tongue, even though it is really breathable, and usually when we see very breathable tongues, it means they're not so supportive. This one really is, and it has a decent amount of padding in it too. And speaking of containment, just one more thing that I thought was a really nice touch and kind of added just the overall containment in the uppers. The heel counter has double thickness padding here in the bunting, or the padding here, but then it also has another layer of padding around it, which is actually integrated into the stitching layer of the uppers too. So you're getting almost like 2.5 times the amount of padding you would around the ankle collar and more of a traditional kind of movers or kind of guard type shoe. And that's kind of where this shoe is going down the line, like I said, for Spencer's particular game, which we'll see more in the mid and outsole. Now on the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, the burr does get through the drag guard. However, it does not get through that second clear layer of the drag guard. There's actually 2 layers here. So I think even dragging and sliding, especially on an indoor court, but even on an outdoor court, I do think these will last decently enough. Especially, I've seen these priced now as low as $77. So I think especially if you're getting it for that price, this is an unbelievable type durability profile in the uppers. But getting into the midsole teardown of the DVD one, this is one of the few times you'll ever see me holding a factory insole, because when you put it on foot, the shoe feels like a bounce house. It doesn't feel like Zoom Air particularly, but it does feel like you're in a bouncy castle, which is crazy. And that is mostly due to the insole, which is made of kind of like a really like elastic, almost Peba type material. But the feeling underfoot is just crazy. And because of the materials, this one isn't going to wear out as fast as others. It's still going to bottom. But I thought I'd make mention of this, that this is a much more premium insole stock than most shoes. It doesn't look like much, but when you take it out, put your foot on the footbed and then put it back in, there's definitely a sensation there. Definitely a different sensation, I should say. But getting into the deeper layers of the teardown, this is an entire bed of elastopan polyurethane. Now, elastopan is a proprietary product, and what it is a thermoplastic polyurethane, it's plastic-based foam. However, it's engineered to have much higher durability and flexibility than some other thermoplastic polyurethanes. Like a lot of those other products, it is also heat stable, and that may also be why these shoes did not heat up as much as some others in their category, the more maximalist upper category, because the midsole was not holding on to heat like some shoes do. Now, the way I experience this, and if you look at it on the microscope too, you'll see it is a very porous midsole, but it almost feels like the cookie dough type midsole of leaning cloud foam, but just a lot more airy and forgiving feeling underfoot. It does not feel like a super light foam. It definitely has some bulk to it, but it still does make the shoe feel, pretty stout. If you look at the single leg jump height test, and I got 20 centimeters of jump height on these, which wasn't bad. And if you look at the bounce height test though, 33 centimeters of bounce height in the heel and then 34 in the forefoot. What I noticed is into the ball of the foot though, the stack height in these is still pretty high once you get into the ball. So you are getting a lot of that Energex foam, which I found with this is I think Energex foam is more meant for, number one, stability. It is a very stable type foam underfoot. You do feel really solid under there. But number two, it is more of a shock absorbing absorbing foam, at least in my experience with using it a couple times. Yeah, it is airy enough that it gets up off the ground easy, but I think you got to bring the energy to these shoes. But I think the best part of the midsole teardown is not even something to tear down to see, and that is the outrigger heel counter that goes into this lateral TPU stabilizer. That goes all the way here into the forefoot. And what I like about this is it is connecting the medial heel all the way here to the lateral forefoot. That gives the shoe so much stability because no matter where you're moving or how much you're cranking the shoe, so both sides of the shoe are working together to produce stability. I've seen this in some tennis shoes as well that works very well for it. Keeps the shoe super stable side to side. So even though these do have a little bit of a rigid shank underneath of it, I think the more important stabilizer definitely is on the outside. And getting into the outsole tread, I really like this pattern just because it is so irregular. It is just basically irregular pods of different geometric shapes. And then right here in the middle of the shoe, you kind of have just one little insert in there. Number one, a pivot point underneath the big toe joint, then just some kind of linear lines, a little bit of diagonal cutouts here. But with the thing that I noticed in this, which I think was the most important part of the outsole tread, but also just kind of the shape of the shoe, is that the midfoot is pretty darn wide in these shoes, gives a lot of contact when you're on your midfoot, and the heel of these is very wide. And that does give, number one, grip, but number two, a lot more stability and a lot more kind of ground contact in the mid part of the shoe, which we'll talk about in the playability section, but it definitely does make these shoes a little bit more unique for their class of shoes. If you look at the speed ratio of these, coming at 2.04, which, you know, isn't the fastest shoe out there. It's definitely not the worst out there, but these are definitely meant for more stability in terms of acceleration and deceleration, and definitely better for more quick movements in a small contained area. And like I said, definitely meant for somebody with a certain kind of footwork and someone that likes to move in a certain type of way. So like I said, they're not going to be a blistering shoe going from coast to coast on the court. And on the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, I mean, not even a millimeter of damage. It's only a 1 to 2 millimeter tread depth. However, the durometer isn't as high as I thought it would be given the abrasion resistance to the burr. And that just tells me that the chemical makeup of the rubber has more, you know, abrasion resistance additives kind of put into it versus just it being a super hard rubber compound. So, you know, these will grip decently on an indoor court. They take about 2 to 3 minutes to warm up, but they are very stable and they'll grip on an outdoor court. Now, they're going to last okay on an outdoor court, like I said, especially for the price point. Just like I said, the tread depth is a little bit lower, so just make sure you watch out for that. But for me, in terms of a shoe for, you know, most court surfaces besides carpet, these will do pretty well. But getting into the fit of the SD1 or DVD1, these definitely just fit big. They just fit large. They are a little bit long and they are a little bit wide. Narrow, medium foot, I would be going down at least a half size. If you're a narrow foot, probably would go down a whole size on these. A 2E, I think, just go true to size. If you want a super performance fit, a 2E, I think, can get away with going down a half size, but you might have a little bit more break-in involved in these. A 4E, I think, just go true to size on these. You don't want to be getting too big and bulky on these. But in terms of the snake bitten foot, you know, number one with, you know, the stock insole on these, but number two, the midsole foam, these do have, like I said, a really forgiving footbed. So heel pain, ball of foot pain, tendonitis, arch pain, anything like that, they're very good for. And especially if someone has a little more instability because the foam is very stable. So really anything snake bitten, these are a very good pickup for. But getting into the playability of the SD1, I think to understand these shoes, you don't need to look any further than Spencer Dinwiddie's Instagram feed. You know, these shoes are built kind of perfectly for him. He is someone that changes directions so effortlessly and just kind of needs a shoe to go along with him. He's somebody that accelerates and decelerates very quickly, and someone that kind of that's kind of a big part of his game. He's someone who you think is going to be driving super hard to the rim and that stops, puts on the brakes. Or number two, someone who you think is going to go one direction and then all of a sudden his back is behind you and he's going to the hoop. So it's someone that needs a shoe for number one, change of directions, number two, change of speed. And I think that's why this shoe does so well for him. Number one, because of the super wide footbed, it gives you a lot of stability when you are making either kind of those pirouette turns or just trying to change directions really quick and kind of keep stability when only one foot is on the ground. Next, I think the more maximalist construction of the uppers gives him a lot more protection when he's in the paint or in a crowd or when he's trying to bully his way past a defender. And so even though these shoes weigh a little bit north of 16 ounces for a size 11, they don't play like a real clunker shoe. They still allow enough creativity. And that's where I think a lot of guards that want a more maximalist feeling shoe, more protective shoe, but a shoe that is still nimble enough to allow you to kind of do what you do, that's kind of where these fit in. I see a lot of guards in the comment section asking, well, I want more of a maximalist shoe, but one that's not going to be too heavy or clunky. And that's kind of where this fits in. And especially for the profile of these, I'd love to know if you're willing to give a pair of shoes like this a chance, one that has more of the maximalist components, but is trying to play like a guard shoe. I'd love to know if kind of you're interested in that kind of profile down below in the comments. So let me know down below. And if you want to see another shoe that has a similar profile, a little more protective shoe, but allows a lot of creativity, the Adidas Harden Volume 7 to go into the knife, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. See you in the next one.